I'm on a short list of people who generally never cared to give Diablo a shot, even knowing that the most common experience was to spend hundreds or thousands of hours progressing through various seasons. Because Blizzard has brought Diablo 3 to the Switch with all the DLC, I think this is the perfect opportunity to see once and for all if I've been wrong this whole time to not give it a try. When launching the game, you come face to face to one of the many reasons that Blizzard is so successful. Their cinematics are not just incredibly well made, but they know how to capture a person's attention with a story hook to make them interested in learning more. The visuals and voice acting set a precedence that we all come to expect in one of their titles. After learning the basis of the story, we'll get introduced to menus chock full of information. To save time, I won't be going incredibly deep into detail of several things in this game, but simply put, the menus offer everything from patch notes, seasonal updates, configurations for multiplayer, plenty of options for customizing gameplay, a cinematic library, leaderboards between friends and the world, customization, and more. I was happy to find just how far you can tweak your settings for individual playstyle. Obviously, what we are most interested in is getting into the game. With the Eternal Collection, you get access to 7 classes that have varying types of fighting styles. Whether you want to jump into the fray fighting wildly or bidding minions to do the work for you, they've got you covered in this one. There's a few game modes to choose from that each have different challenges and levels of difficulty. In fact, the difficulty selection is one of the most interesting parts of this game. If you thought 4 options were a lot to choose from, just wait until you have 17 difficulties to choose from. But beyond the typical set of difficulties, there are increasing levels of torment that's mostly used for gear progression and pushing the limits for leaderboards. The other main option to decide between is seasonal or normal characters. Normal playthroughs provide a typical experience where you advance a character to the endgame and have them there forever. Seasonal characters offer more replayability as their stats are wiped after the end of each season. This also allows that character to acquire season-specific awards as they advance. The campaign gives a unique cinematic for each class that can be played. It's a nice addition for everyone to have a different reason for showing up at their first settlement, and their voice acting and design fit very well. To avoid spoilers, I'm not going to show too much in the way of story or combat beyond the beginning. Keeping with the quality Blizzard does well at delivering, many NPCs are interactable and well voiced. Simple additions like this help make these hubs for each act feel more alive. You have your typical progression through quests given by key members of the settlement, and will even be able to upgrade a few shops that will provide better gear. For the players that love lore, there's plenty of collectibles in the form of diary entries along the way. Keep an eye out for these, as they can be hidden throughout your travels. The real action begins when you get into dangerous lands and dungeons. Like other dungeon divers, your character starts out with pretty basic skills, and combat stays very simple for a little while. In fact, I became a bit bored with how much of my time was spent mashing the same buttons and just waiting for the enemies to die. A word of wisdom, I recommend upping the difficulty anytime you feel comfortable after learning the basics of how your class works. It made the combat much more enjoyable for me. Otherwise, level ups are rather plentiful and you get introduced to new abilities your character can use quite often. With 70 levels of progression to enjoy, this can keep many players constantly entertained along the way. What makes this gameplay even better is just how little loading time you'll experience between sections. It's very good for keeping the flow of the game uninterrupted while exploring, and I'm sure many others would agree. The kind of fighting you'll experience is more geared to players who really enjoy mowing down hundreds of enemies and live to see that kill combo go up and up. You can get certain power-ups based on the things you destroy, which even includes the environment. Occasionally, you'll even find more powerful elite units that carry special combat traits, so watch out. Overall, the combat can seem a bit bland in the beginning, but once I started dealing with more chaotic brawls, I seriously started to have fun, and really, that's where the good parts lie in Diablo. The other main game mode, Adventure, revolves more around procedurally generated dungeons, revisiting campaign locations for certain goals, and gear acquisition for near unlimited replayability. It's also worth noting that your characters used in the campaign can be brought here as well while maintaining the same gear across game modes. While discussing with a friend who is a veteran of Diablo, he explained that this is where most of his gameplay takes place. And I can really see why. You can complete bounties for rewards in familiar locations from the story, or open rifts for some of the most chaotic fighting I've ever experienced. It can take just a moment before you realize just how innumerable the enemies can get in these dungeons. Players can also optimize their dungeon runs with pre-made armor sets. When they really want to get serious, they'll aim for greater rifts that can provide even more rare rewards. I can really see why so many people sink hundreds of hours into this mode alone. One feature I'm sure most players will enjoy is the very well-rounded multiplayer experience. Even having one other player to join the fray made the game all that more enjoyable. You can queue up in a lobby, quickly match with other players, or even drop in and out while your friend is playing. It's a super seamless experience, and most of these positives translate to split screen as well. The main fallback is that players can't leave beyond the borders of the screen from each other. In online multiplayer, players can travel beyond this limitation, but I still never really noticed it to be much of an issue. It's also worth noting that enemies will scale depending on how many players are present. A very nice way to keep everything balanced. You may already notice that the visuals don't look all that great. It's important to note that while this game also has to be downscaled slightly to run on the Switch, this game was released over 6 years ago. There's a moderate amount of aliasing on models, and textures don't look very high quality. Animations are alright, but abilities still look quite good for being this old. With all of this in mind, I have to say that this game runs super smoothly. Even after trying to bring a large amount of units on screen to see a stutter or two, it never struggled to maintain the 60 frames per second. Honestly, after noticing this, I don't mind the outdated graphics as much. I'm already pro gameplay over graphics anyway, but this still impressed me. For many players, this is going to be a major help in their decision of purchasing this title. What about audio?
It has begun.
I have journeyed here to find the fallen star and purge its evil from this land.
It fell on the old cathedral. There was only one survivor, Leah. You should speak with her.
Captain Rumford, more dead are coming.
We can't open the gates until we drive them. Leah spent all night alongside the blacksmith's wife, tending the wounded.
What? She was out defending the gates this morning.
I have more control now.
Blizzard is no stranger to cinematic scores and professional sound effects. The music doesn't get too energetic in fights, but instead tries to maintain the ambience of where you are currently exploring. Occasionally, you'll come across an ability that sounds 6 years old, but overall, effects have a nice impact and make sense for each use. Some enemies can sound pretty similar, but at times it's hard to differentiate due to the sheer volume of noises taking place. I especially like the moments where I complete an objective or level up. It's just so satisfying. And since we are playing on the Switch, how's the handheld? Like most other titles, it's a really great experience. Visuals appear much sharper than in docked mode, and I've never dropped any frames while fighting through hordes of enemies. Diablo is also made very well for short bursts of playing. You can easily pause your game or start from a recent autosave to pick up where you left off. It's a very important feature for this hybrid console. The main annoyance I have is that the font is a bit too small. While I may not have trouble reading it, I don't think text is large enough for all players to easily read. I really wish they would have thought this out and implemented an option for larger fonts. What it comes down to is that Diablo 3 is a very well made game from its generation. Everything is where you'd expect it for a main release from Blizzard. Most of the cons are due to its age and limitations of the Switch itself. But is the expanse of replayability worth picking this up at retail price? I would say it's a buy, as long as you like games with progression mechanics and enjoy hopping around experiencing the different classes. After playing the story, playing with friends in adventure mode, and enjoying the many options of replaying different modes with different classes, you are looking at getting at least $1.5 an hour. Honestly, this is me being pessimistic. If you actually dive into what this game has to offer with optimizing gear and joining friends into the torment levels of difficulty, this would easily become a number less than $1 per hour. But for everyone else who may not like the combat or don't have many friends to play with, this is a great game to experience on a sale. The added DLC for the story mode and the occasional dip into adventure should still give you your money's worth. And I'm not even going into the cosmetics or the special things they added for Nintendo Switch. It can be pets, or transmogs, or many others, just to customize your experience even more. There's just so many hours to be had underneath the face value of this title, but you should make sure that this is the type of gameplay that you enjoy. I was never too convinced by Diablo's gameplay, which is why I never bought it until the Switch brought its hybrid functionality to the table. This is where the game really becomes special, and I'm ready to be proven more wrong as I continue to play it for hours and hours. And that's it for Diablo 3 Eternal Collection. Be sure to like this video if it helped you out, and subscribe to see my thoughts on upcoming titles. You can check out my social media by clicking on the links in the description below, and see what other games I have in mind to review even before a video is released.